Hi, this is Andre Cohen. I want to say thank you so much for joining us today to have this conversation about how it's just how I grew up, right? So we didn't have a whole lot of control over that. What I would like to have you do before we go forward there is first of all, I'm glad you're here, and if you can hit like and subscribe and hit that bell, you won't miss anything that we're putting out. So if you like the kind of content that you're getting from us, hit that like and subscribe button, and hit the little bell so you'll get a you'll be notified when we add new content. And so when we talk about this idea of it's just how I grew up, sometimes in our trainings, in the conversations that we have, this is one of those kind of conversations that comes up. And what we have to recognize is that that's a real thing that as facilitators, as trainers, we have to address. We have to be prepared to address that. So we'll talk a little bit about how to prepare for that. So what we know is that in our growing up, there weren't a lot of choices that we had as small babies, as children, and even in some cases, young adults, right? And so we're brought up in a particular family system, or we're grafted into a family system, or we're adopted by a family system that is steeped in a context, right? And so, for me, part of my context was growing up in the so-called African American or Black community, and all of our traditions, all of our history, all of those things. Which I didn't, as a small child, I didn't have any control over that. So I'm learning from people out of that context. I'm interacting with people from that context. They're teaching me the best that they know about how to survive in what we refer to as the real world from their perspective. And so that's where I learn. Right. So, but what we also have to recognize is as we grow older, as we come to the age of accountability, and so, people say, well, what is that age of accountability? And I would say any time when you're able to freely and directly impact, resources, gather resources, and make decisions about how those resources are used, you're now at the age of accountability, right? So, for a number of people, that's a number of different ages. At any point, when we come to the age of accountability, we have to recognize that we come from a context that is limited, and we'll have a conversation about that as well. Simultaneously, what we have to recognize is that we have to take responsibility for what we've learned, right? And it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility. The fact that some folks grew up in a rural area where there wasn't much diversity, that's not their fault. However, age of accountability, when it becomes important to recognize that I live in a world, I have a workplace, I go to school where there's a variety of people, then I have to take responsibility even for what I didn't know, right? And so, one tool that we use to try to help people talk about that is this tool that we refer to as the "What I Learned Growing Up" tool. Not very creative, but I think you'll get the gist of how and why we use this particular tool to assess what we learned growing up, because it really does help us recognize that some of the things and how we've kind of come to see the world, right? So across the top are social groups, and the list is not exhaustive. So there could be, and there are others that we could add to this, but I think you'll get the point through this example. And on the left side of this matrix, if you will, are groups of people who've tried to give us information about social groups, right? So parents and family, friends, school and workplace, TV, movies, and media, and personal experience have all tried to give us information about those social groups. And so typically what I do in a group is that I'll pass out this card, or I'll make copies, or sometimes I'll even do it online with some annotation tools, and have people fill out the box with pluses, minuses, and zeros. So pluses are those things that were positive, that that groups of people on the left tried to tell you about one of those social groups. Minuses are negative things that those folks on the left tried to tell you about those social groups. And zeros are when you never had a conversation at all about those social groups, right? So pluses, minuses, and zeros, and size matters. So a big plus means lots of positive. If you have a small negative sign, then that means you learned just a little bit of negative. And you can have pluses and minuses in the same box. And so we go through that procedure, usually about 5 to 7 minutes, depending on group size or how we're doing that. And so then we start to kind of talk about the what, the so what, and the now what, right? So what did you notice about yourself as you were going through your pluses, minuses, and zeros? Often I don't have people share what they have pluses, minuses, and zeros in. I just let them sit with that. But I do ask them, what did they learn about themselves, right? And so what did you learn about yourself? So what? So what does that mean for you? And then lastly, now what? Now, what are you going to do with that? And so when we think about the fact that we grew up in a particular context, we're limited in our information, we grew up with limited ways of recognizing how complex the world is. And that for many of us, that's not true for all of us, but for many of us, that those things can hold true. And so how do we do that? We do that through careful, thoughtful reflection on our past. And so I want to say that particular tool is something you can replicate, you can use, or you can email us, and we'll send you the PDF of that. But that ends our time together, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. And if you could hit that like button, hit subscribe. It encourages us to create more videos like this, and we're so excited that you decided to join us, and we look forward to seeing who you become. My name is Andre Cohen. I want to say thank you. Till next time.